Well, good morning, everybody. It's Barb Katie again, and I'm so glad to be here with you on this fine Monday morning. I love getting together with you and talking about different things in our weight loss journey, which is actually more a journey to our best health than it is anything else. And as you know, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about uh, food preferences, eating the foods we really like as we continue on our journey so that this is a pleasure for us, and also trying to eat nutrient dense foods, foods that have not been radically chemically altered or had a lot of additives placed inside it. And I thought it might be interesting today just to briefly look at the primary additives and what the food guidelines that are on the nutrition labels that we read so diligently to keep us informed may contain that we may not even be aware of. And to that regard, I stuck just a random nutrition label into the presentation today to point out some small print that may have gone unnoticed by many of you. All nutrition labels that we use, uh, if you'll look at the red arrow in the picture beside me of the nutrition label, are based on a daily food intake of 2,000 calories. Most of us who are trying to reduce our weight are not eating that amount of food. Some of us do because we are more use more energy, maybe larger in size, but generally speaking, the average person who is trying to lose weight is actually targeting at about 500 calories less than that, at 1,500 calories for a daily food intake, uh, which sounds like a lot, but in the course of a week, if you actually reduced your intake needs by that amount, you would be losing somewhere between a half a pound and a pound, which is a very slow, sensible way to lose weight. But yet, in a year's time, just at that rate, that could result in a significant amount of weight loss if that is your ultimate goal. For most of us, I hope our ultimate goal is to eat as healthily as possible and achieve our healthiest, best selves. If we do that, the actual number on that scale tends to modify itself naturally as you go along. So, given that little piece of information to inform you of the basis of these nutrition labels, let's move forward. Where do some of these calories come from? There are in processed foods often additives to the food, and these additives are actually to enhance flavor and taste and desirability most of the time. And there are three primary areas from which these additives come. And the first source that I'll just mention to you briefly are added sugars. I think that we know that a lot of processed food that you eat does, in fact, have processed sugars. Uh, they come from many, many different sources. Uh, on average, a little over 250 calories every day is ingested in the form of added sugar to a food product. And where do these come from? Well, there are two primary sources uh, for added sugar to slip into the foods that you eat. The first are sugar sweetened beverages, which should come as no surprise to any of us, and desserts and sweet snacks. Those comprise about 43% of the added sugars that can come into your intake every day. And these are basically non-nutritive sugars. They're, just for the most part, simple sugars. Um, Given that in mind, if you happen to have medical conditions that want you to monitor the amount of sugar that you ingest, this is certainly information that you need to know, because it isn't always put up front clearly that these are added sugars. You also get some sugar from candy, if you're eating candy, from coffee, and tea. You may be, especially if you are doing the fancy coffees and teas, and sandwiches. But other sources of added sugar that you may not really be aware of can sneak into our breakfast cereals and breakfast bars, and also into higher fat milk and yogurt. So read your labels and be aware of what is being actually added to that food product before you eat it. Always good information to know in advance exactly what you're ingesting. Fruit drinks are often have sugar added, and you see it's 100% fruit juice. Well, read the label carefully and make sure they aren't sweetening it up just a little bit. Energy drinks sometimes have added sugars as well. Of course, we know that ice cream and frozen dairy treats have added sugars, as do cakes and pies and cookies and things like brownies. Just a little common sense, a little caution, a little careful attending to the nutrition label will keep us aware of the choices we're making so that we get the biggest bang for our food buck, which is, to me, the ideal. The second area in which sugar does creep in as an additive into our food supply are what are called saturated fats. Again, usually if one of the three additives is removed, one or both of the other two food additives are increased slightly so that the palatability that Americans tend to prefer, and I think to a degree, the Canadian adult population also has very similar flavor profile preferences. So you need to be aware of these saturated fats and where they come into the foods you normally ingest. Again, on average, added fat from saturated fats is around 240 calories. Well, if you're doing the math as we go along, you're going to see that we have opportunities if we're eating pretty much things that are not processed to reduce significant numbers of calories as well as additives from saturated fats, which are not the best choice that we could be making. The two primary sources in the average adult individual's daily food plan from which saturated fats could possibly be moderated are in sandwiches again, and in desserts and sweet snacks. No big surprise there. These are foods that are really convenience foods and comfort foods. And people tend to want something that they really like, that the flavor profile is such that it brings them uh, interesting satisfactions that are not necessarily based at all on sating hunger, but sating other things as well. And where can you get saturated fats in addition to your sandwiches and from desserts and sweet snacks? Well, you can actually get them from things like pizza. I'm sure you've eaten pizza before. Again, from higher fat milk and yogurt. Um, from processed dishes, you go to the convenience counter at your local market and you get already prepared meals. Uh, that's an opportunity to add some saturated fat because it enhances the flavor profile. All kinds of different spreads that you would put on a slice of bread or a cracker or what have you. Cheeses. Um, Even processed grain and pasta dishes often have added saturated fats to them. Chips and crackers and savory snacks that you like. Uh, Processed meat products that you may buy for the convenience of them. Um, Eggs even have saturated fat. Poultry, excluding deli and mixed dishes also, you need to be aware that absolutely you can find saturated fats added within these groups of foods that we grab every day because they're handy and save us time. But what are they doing as far as our health is concerned? Um, that's for us to make choices on. Again, if you want the healthiest, cleanest meals you can have, try to not eat as many of these processed foods on a daily basis to instead do things like cooking your chicken breast so you know exactly what it is, or your turkey or whatever, and then slicing it up and making your own uh, sandwiches out of whole grain uh, breads or whatever that you know the content of. Uh, and you eat with awareness and with pleasure. And you will find actually that once you start to get in this habit, it does not take that much more time to take that step than it does to run to the market. Um, you can cook something at home pretty quickly. I know chicken is always my go-to because it is possible to use it in so many different ways, and it cooks quickly and is always, I think, a reliable source of protein for me and my family. But you make your decisions based on information. Again, another way to eat a little more healthily every day and still enjoy what you're doing. The other additive that tends to be put in food pretty regularly, and most of you who have high blood pressure have been cautioned against this, is the addition of salt and sodium-based seasonings into the food. Again, this is another way, if you're going to remove some sugar, if you're going to remove some fat, add a little bit of extra salt and people will think it tastes good again. I think a lot of us really like chips, and chips tend to have a lot of added salt to them on a regular basis that we need to sort of be cautious of. And the primary sources for added sodium into a daily food plan are again from sandwiches, or I'm seeing a theme here. When you're eating, and what's more convenient than throwing together a sandwich in a hurry? But there are a lot of additives in that very food choice, and rice and other grain-based mixed dishes, that they are primarily the sources of additional salt in your food plan. On average, the intake of sodium can be over 3,000 milligrams daily. And the last guideline I saw about minimum requirements is a little over 1,000. So, that almost triples the amount of salt that would be found just by choosing some of the higher sodium added foods. And they're usually convenience foods. Again, things like pizza and tortillas and chips and yeast bread and deli and cured meats often have a lot of extra sodium, as do breakfast cereals and bars, and soups tend to be very high in sodium as well, that you buy off the shelf. You can control the amount easily by making your own again. It's just getting in the habit of doing that and understanding that with a different type of planning, it's actually really convenient to do that instead of grabbing it off the shelf. Right now, with the vegetable season at its height, a lot of people are processing things out of the garden within their own kitchens just so they can control these three additives, the fat, the salt, the sugar that gets into it, because they're there in their kitchen preparing whatever it is for later use in the year and putting it either in the freezer or canning it. So they know when they pull it out, it does not contain additional elements that they weren't counting on and weren't aware of. So that's basically all I wanted to share with you today, is to understand that a lot of the processed food that is so convenient for us that we go to, that we grab, that we do enjoy in occasionally and in moderation, can actually be substituted with food that does not have these products in it, just by a few extra seconds at home. Try again to eat whole food that you prepare, that you know what the ingredients are, and know, just like I pointed out, the fine print in the nutrition label, that you may not be making a correct assumption when percentages are given on a nutrition label. They are not based on what your calorie intake is. They're based on a standard which may be significantly higher than the one that you are targeting to meet your daily needs. So awareness is always empowering, and we'll touch on that a little bit more perhaps next week, which will conclude this series of informational pieces on healthy eating and what it actually means and what it doesn't mean. Eat the rainbow. Enjoy every morsel that you ingest, and if it doesn't bring you pleasure, maybe just let it go. Thank you so much for sharing the day with me. I'm starting out feeling really good. I hope you are as well. You have a happy Monday and a wonderful rest of the week. I will talk to you later. Bye.